Hello, everyone. My name is Karen Davis, and I'm the Publications and Communications Director for the Camera Club of Richmond. And we're glad to have several of our members here tonight to learn about image evaluations. And my co-host and co-presenter tonight is our brand new digital director. Um, Pat Hutchinson is here, and she's going to be doing most of the presentation. She said to me that she likes to jump right into things. And she also told me she loves Excel. So this is a good thing for a digital director to love Excel. So we'll kick things off and just kind of go through the process. We're going to do a share screen. So you may want to correct your visual display so that you can see the screen as large as possible and maybe minimize our faces off to the side there. But we welcome you to enter your questions in the chat. There are a couple of formal places where we'll ask you if you have questions, but feel free, since we have a small informal group here, just to jump in and stop us if something's not clear for you. So I am going to share screen and bring up a little document that Pat and I put together just to kind of take you through the process. And I apologize, we had looking at it earlier, so it was kind of in the middle. But what we're doing tonight is just an overview training, if you will, on what these monthly image evaluations are all about. Your most important cast of characters are kind of there. As I said, Pat is our new digital director this year. She already got her feet wet a little bit with the end of year competition for last year. She was there driving the Excel spreadsheet as the judges were assigning the numbers that they assign in that competition to all the pictures. So she's been handling that data already. And so she's hit the ground running. Philip Snyder, as many of you probably know, is our print director. Philip might pop in tonight. Terry Troxel is our webmaster. He had a big hand in putting these procedures together. And of course, I'm Karen, the publications director. So I guess I'm wearing my publications hat tonight with trying to get all of these things published so that folks have what they need to be able to fully participate in the Camera Club. So we thought we'd start out with just kind of an overview of what exactly is an image evaluation and a little bit about why you should participate. I'm not going to read this all to you, but just to kind of give you an overview, we photographers love to have people see and enjoy our photographs, but you don't always want to hear the nitty gritty and the bad side of, well, how could my picture be a little bit better? And that's what's important about these critiques. And we as a board and kind of our history as a camera club have done critiques for as long as I've been a member, and that's been almost 10 years now, I think. And I'm sure that they go back even farther than that. But we're really careful about how we pick these evaluators and these people to critique the pictures, because we want good photo critiques. It's like that sandwich thing you hear about it. Anybody has ever done any training. You want to give people praise about what they've done, and then combine that with some constructive comments, suggestions, critiques of how they can make that a little bit better. You always like to get a good pat on the back, but you don't want people to just say, oh, that's a nice photo. And literally, we've had some evaluators that everything was roses and puppy dogs, and it's like, but tell me how I can make it better. You want a nice balance, and we've been real careful with selecting the folks to come in. Some are professional photographers, some are art people connected with some of the local art galleries, and some are our club members. We have several club members who are members of the Virginia Professional Photographers Association. And if you were in some of the critiques last year, you may have heard Fred Morton and Linda Schmiel kind of jumped in on, at the last minute when we had a snafu with our schedule. And they did a fabulous evaluation. They did a little tag team thing. So we have a lot of talent within the club, but we usually try to go outside the club to bring people in to give us a different perspective on our photos, because you can kind of stalemate a little bit, if you're not seeing other people's perspectives of the work that you're doing. So we're looking for them to give us constructive feedback, word it gently but firmly, and an explanation. And in some cases, as with Nick Stover, anybody who's ever experienced one of Nick's critiques for us, he started in 2020. And by popular demand, we've asked him back every single year, because he actually projects the photos with his Lightroom and then shows us how he wants us to crop it or how he wants to lighten certain areas or whatever. And oh man, that was just really, really helpful to actually see and hear what he's suggesting that we can do to our photos. So that's the critique idea. We call them image evaluations. We're doing 5 of them this year. And I'm going to bring the schedule up and turn it over to Pat, and she's going to tell you what's going on and the dates and all about those assigned subjects. So there you go, Pat. And I'm not seeing your face, but your mic might be off, Pat.
It was off. Sorry about that.
Here we go. Okay, you're back.
So so our first evaluation is going to be February the 13th. It's an open evaluation, which means you can submit any subject, anything you like. That's going to be with Mary Fisk Taylor. That's an in-person evaluation. The next one is going to be April the 9th, which is an assigned subject of doors and or windows with Anthony.
Oh, Pat, I think we lost you. Anthony Rumling. And that's also an in-person one.
I'm so sorry, Karen. My internet has been perfect all day.
Of course, it's just always the way. I pick it up with the June one. Yeah.
Okay, so June 11th is an open evaluation with Carol Davis. That is virtual, which means if you have any prints that you want to have reviewed, you're going to have to submit a digital image of that, and do not bring your prints, which I'll get into a little bit later. July the 9th is an assigned subject of panoramas with Nick Stover. That one also is virtual. And then September the 10th, we have assigned subject of trees with Henry Stint. That is also virtual. The schedule may change a little bit depending on the availability of some of the evaluators, but hopefully this will stand as is for the rest of the year. And since most of you, or maybe it was all of you, have submitted evaluations before, do any of you have any questions before we get started? There have been really no changes this year from last year's procedures, so I didn't know if maybe there's something maybe you were confused about that you wanted to ask a question about. I think that's a no. Okay. So we're going to go over the general evaluation guidelines. So you have to be, in order to submit for the image evaluations, you have to be a Camera Club of Richmond member in good standing, which means you have to have paid your $40 dues. If you have not paid them and you want to pay them and you want to join, then there are 2 ways you can do it. You can click this first link here, which will take you to PayPal so that you can pay online and join online, or you can send an email to Doug Turner, who is our treasurer, and he'll give you instructions on how to mail him a check. For the submissions, you can submit 1 or 2 images at each evaluation. There are 5 evaluations, so that means you can submit a total of 10 images throughout the year. You can choose any combination of digital or prints, black and white, color, it doesn't really matter. It's just the total of 2 images per evaluation, 10 per year. Whenever there's an assigned subject, you can do 1 image into the assigned subject category and 1 image into a general category. If you do not want to submit anything into the assigned category, you can enter 1 image into the general. And then whatever you enter into these categories, you can also enter into the end of year competition. Everything you do on your image has to be your own work, whether it comes to setup, post-production, anything you do to it has to be your own work. It can't be something where you've had help from another photographer or an instructor or something like that. I do have a question about this, Karen. When it comes to, when it says including staging, what about like a model workshop where, you know, they've got a model come in, so the model is kind of staged, but you're actually doing the photo and possibly telling the model how to pose.
It's a bit of a gray area, and the board has talked about this for years. If say, and I went to one that Fred Morton did a couple of years ago. If the person conducting it sets the model up, tells her exactly how to pose, tells you what settings to put on your camera, and says, stand here, click the button. We really don't want to see those pictures because we want to see your ingenuity, your take on it, your positioning. So if we took that scenario and we just changed it a little bit, he brought in a model and he's given you, access to his studio and his lights, but you position her, you change the lights, you determine what f-stop you want to use and where you want to stand. I think those pictures are fine because we're seeing your creativity, not just you, mimicking what someone else is doing and pushing the button. Does that help any?
Great.
Okay.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted your input on that.
Yeah, it's a gray area, and we're sort of hoping that, photographers will, take it to heart and with the intent of that rule, if you will, that guideline, to show us your work, not somebody else's work.
Right. We don't want your name or watermark on the face of the image. It really makes it hard to evaluate something when you've got either of those taking away from the image itself. The entries have to be submitted in the correct format and proper digital name, which we're going to go over in just a little bit. If you are submitting a file for an assigned subject, you have to have an 8S node, I guess, included in the file name, and we will also discuss that in a couple of minutes. So your JPEGs need to be sent or emailed to this email right here, digital.ccrva@gmail.com by midnight on the Saturday prior to each image evaluation meeting. So it's got to be by midnight. 12:10 I'll do, 5 a.m., anyway, just try to get it at midnight because I'm going to probably start looking at these first thing Sunday morning. So whatever I get Sunday morning is what I will take. I can't, there has to be a stop somewhere. If there's an in-person evaluator and you're doing prints, you need to make sure those prints are to the print director at least 15 minutes prior to the evaluation meeting. We have to, and I'm going to go over this in a little more detail in a little bit also. The the print director has got to make sure that all of the images are in the right sequence according to the way they're also going to be displayed on the screen. So we need a little bit of time to make sure he can get everything together. Also, you can convert any digital image that you submit throughout the year into a print for your end of year competition. And any image can be resubmitted for evaluation if it's never won an award in the Camera Club of Richmond's end of year competition.
Any questions so far?
Okay.
All right.
So this is how our image evaluation process goes, and I'm sure you guys have all seen this. You may not have realized all the details, but you've all seen it. So the digital director, I'm just going to say I. Okay.
There you go.
I will collect all the JPEG images that you submit through your emails up through that deadline. And then I take that information and put it into a spreadsheet. There's Michael Orr, bless his heart, has created all kinds of little procedures for me to help this out. But we create a spreadsheet of the entries that are sorted in the following sequence. So we've got the prints, and we want the assigned subjects first, sorted by title, alphabetically by title, and then the others are sorted alphabetically by title. And then behind that, we have the digital images that are sorted by assigned subject alphabetically, and then other sorted alphabetically by title. This is the order in which they are displayed at the evaluation. So that spreadsheet of all of the images is sent to the print director, and he uses that to sort his prints into the right sequence so it matches what is going to be displayed up on the screen. I also remove the photographer's names from the file names if the evaluator wants to review these JPEGs prior to the monthly meeting. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But when they get these images, we don't want the evaluator to know who that photographer was, so we stripped that out. And then after that, we create a slideshow in the sequence I had mentioned to be presented during the meeting. So when the way the presentation goes is we do the prints first, as I mentioned. The print will be displayed in the light box by Phil Snyder. And at the same time, it's going to be displayed up on the big screen for anybody who happens to be in the room or anybody who's viewing through Zoom. Then I will announce the title of the image. So we've got it in both places, in the Lightroom and in the light box and on the screen. And then I announce the image title. The evaluator is going to say whatever it is he wants to say. He'll do some critiques, general comments, whatever he wants to say, he will say. And then I announce the name of the photographer. And then that same process goes on for all of the prints and all of the digital images. So those images that have just been evaluated can now be submitted as evaluated images into the end of year competition. And it's probably a good idea for you guys to create or to keep a list of everything you submit in a spreadsheet so you know what has been submitted and whether or not you can submit it for end of year. And also any changes that are made based on the evaluator's input, you can make those changes and resubmit those photos in the end of year competition. Anything to add, Karen?
No, you covered that well. Any questions?
One last thing is the red sentence at the bottom says the end of year competition is completely optional, so you don't have to enter that. So you can enter something into a monthly evaluation and never ever go to the end of year. So you can do one or both.
And it really isn't very painful. Yeah, I think I heard someone with a question.
I think that was me.
It was you? Okay. Yeah, I always tell the story when we do this training of my very first image evaluation. I was joking with some of the members. I said, I feel like I had to come in with my sunglasses and a hat pulled down low and a trench coat turned up so high so nobody would know whose picture it was because I was a nervous wreck. And then, when I heard the evaluation, I thought, oh, well, he was really pretty kind with, what he had to say and had some good critiques and all. And, and after the first one or so, you relax a little bit, but still when you see your image pop up on the screen, there's a momentary intake of breath. I was like, oh no, what are they going to say? But
your hands start sweating. Yep.
But it has been incredibly helpful. As we've all, you learn from your own critiques and you learn from everybody else's as well.
Yeah.
All right. There you go, Pat.
So this is the judging criteria that is adhered to on every evaluation. One thing you have to remember is that the photographer has their opinions, the reviewer or the evaluator has their opinions. Everybody looks at things differently. So that's all I can say about that. So the first thing they look at is overall impact and impression. Does the image tell a story? Is the subject of the image appropriate to the story? Does the image evoke emotion? Does it have a wow factor? That first question is a little confusing to me because does the image tell a story and is the subject of the image appropriate to the story? If the subject of the image is not appropriate to the story, how do you know what the story is? But anyway, that's just the way I read that.
Well, let me throw in there that titles are really important as it relates to the story. And there was one evaluator a while back that just went over and over and over about titles. And she, would pick them apart and say, well, you said, the open window, but the open window maybe was only a small part of the picture. Like, why did you title it that if that's not the primary subject of the image? And so it's that kind of thing. And maybe we should modify this a little bit to talk about titling if you are telling a story to get the viewer to look at what you want them to see. So that
I think that's a good idea. Yeah, that kind of clarifies that first question.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then for the technical factors, we all know what they are: focus, depth of field, exposure, color balance, black and white images as far as tonal scale. And then for creativity is the photo original, in the use of lighting, perspective, color, special effects. That's a pretty good one right there.
Mm-hmm.
The composition is the design of the image, visually pleasing. Do the elements of the image hold the observer and easily draw him to the subject? Does the composition come together as a whole? I feel bad just reading these. I'd like to expand on them a little more, but I've not been to that many of these evaluations or not participated in but one. So if you have anything to add to these, Karen, please do.
Okay. Well,
And then
in terms of composition, we have had evaluators and judges that have talked about various pictures saying, we all hear about the rule of thirds, and we hear about leading lines, and we hear about S curves and stuff. And a lot of times they'll say, those are all great, but they're guidelines, they're not laws. And if you have a reason that you want to center that stained glass window because the symmetry is the beauty of that window, then put that thing right in the middle of the image, and the heck with rule of thirds. So they want you to know the rules of composition, use them where they actually work, but know when you can break those guidelines, if you will, and do something totally different that might be even more creative. So depending on, especially some of our artsy evaluators will really look to that and decide, well, did they break those composition rules for a reason, and does it work? So that may be a little bit of clarification on that composition item.
okay,
Maybe we can get a
thank you.
trainer to come in and talk more about that. That would be good. Have an
That would be
educational
nice.
seminar. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then on the finishing, if you're going to put digital or physical mats, how do they look? If you're putting borders, vignetting, do they actually add to the photo or just or detract from it? Is it too intense? Is it, maybe not enough of a vignette? So that's the kind of thing they look for there. So that's the same evaluation criteria they use for each of the monthly evaluations as well as end of year.
And I'll give you a little helpful hint, and some of you maybe already know this. Anthony Rumley, who is one of our evaluators this year and just about every year, he's fabulous. He's a VPPA member as well. He has a thing for digital mats. If there's no digital mat on there, more often than not, he'll say the picture just doesn't look finished. It runs off the edge. Whereas the mat, tends to serve as a frame to keep your eye in the frame. And he felt so strongly about this that he actually volunteered to do a little Zoom training class for us way back in 2020 when we were still trying to figure out Zoom. But if you go to our website, our YouTube page, you will find Anthony's training class on how to, and this is Photoshop for those of you who don't know how to use Photoshop. This may be a good incentive to learn it. But he went through a real quick little procedure that you can take your picture into Photoshop and expand the canvas and put a nice digital frame around it. And I have to admit, boy, when I see some of my pictures without, and then I put the frame around it, I kind of go, wow, okay, that really helped to finish it. And that's what that finishing piece is all about. If you can't find the Anthony Rumley link, let us know, and maybe we'll pop it into the Facebook group just to remind everybody that you can go review that. All right, any other questions? I'm going to scroll on.
So here are the specs for formatting your images. There's a maximum width and height pixel. 3840 is the width and 2160 is the height. And this actually creates the perfect image size for the projector that we have right now. In Lightroom, we have instructions on how to set the height and width. And then in Photoshop, the instructions are a bit different. So we have links here that go to documents for both of those. let me see. Let me see if I can get these images, these documents, Karen, real quick.
Okay, do you want me to stop sharing right here?
Yeah, and you want to tell me how to share? I've never done it.
There's a little green
Oh, hold on.
at the bottom to share screen. So while she's pulling up those instructions, I will tell you that we wrote them several iterations ago in terms of the Lightroom and the Photoshop version, if you will. So there might be a couple of little hiccups there. We hope not. And those links do exist in the procedure. So if you pull up the procedure on your own computer, or you go to our website and pull the procedure out, you should be able to see those links if you need to have some instruction on it. But Pat or I could help you. Terry Troxel helped write those. So Terry's really good to help with sizing. Michael Orr, if you can track him down, he's trying to fade off into oblivion, but we're not going to let him get too far. But Michael's an expert at that too. But Pat can do it. Pat, did you able to find it?
Yep, I got it.
There we go. It's coming.
All righty. Somebody has a question, I think.
Oh, I see a chat. Yeah. Yes. Okay. A link to Anthony Romney. I will go find that link while Pat talks, and I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. So these are the places that we will actually use the images that you submit. Obviously, on the image evaluations, end of year competition, sometimes we may put a photo into a member photo gallery or possibly into the newsletter. All of those need to be sized the same, with a 3840 pixel width and a 2160 pixel height. So in Lightroom, I hope you can see this. Let me see if I can make it a little bigger. Well, nope, it won't go any bigger. Anyway, let me get something here real quick. So hopefully you can see what's going on in the screen. This first section, can you see my little mouse moving around? It's like a little crosshair, kind of. Nope. Okay. Well, this first little frame here says export to, and what folder. That is all up to you. You can put your photo wherever you want it, wherever makes sense to you. Under file naming, this is the important part here. This rename to needs to be checked, and then right beside that, there's a drop-down list that has options of, I don't know exactly what all the options are, but you need to make sure that it says custom name. And then below that, you actually enter custom text. In this text, this naming convention needs to follow what we've suggested. So this particular one, which we haven't gone over it yet, we probably should have gone over that before we got to this part. But D is for digital, and then there's an underscore, and then there's the name of the photo or the title of the photo, the Magnificent Magnolia. Then there's another underscore, and then the photographer's name, Karen Davis. In this custom text, this is what it's going to name the file. They all need to be JPEGs. You don't want to put .jpeg here, because the example below actually shows where it puts .jpeg on there automatically. And a little bit further down on this screen, there's going to be an option where you can choose what kind of file you want, and you'll be choosing JPEG there. Under video, there's nothing you need to worry about. File settings, here it is. Image format, you want to make sure it says JPEG. The color space needs to be sRGB. You want to, let's see, limits file size to, you want that to be unchecked. And then image sizing, this is where you put your actual width and height. You want to make sure that resize to fit is checked. And then you put 3840 in the width, 2160 in the height. Make sure you select pixels, uncheck, don't enlarge. And the resolution, you want it to be 300, and you want it to be pixels per inch. There's some other options here that are not in the screen print that I'll tell you about. There's the output sharpening. You want to check the option that says sharpen for, and you want to select the option of screen. Metadata, there's nothing you need to do. For watermarking, There's nothing really you need to do except uncheck where it says watermark. And then post-processing, there's nothing you need to do there. So after you do all that, there's a little export button. I believe it's down in the right-hand corner. You click that, and then it's going to put the file exactly where you told it up in this top section. And then once you do that, of course, everything I said is just right here in the verbiage. After you do that, you want to email the image by the deadline, midnight to Saturday prior to the evaluation meeting. But if you're submitting 2 images, you want to put them both in one email to the digital director, digital.ccrva@gmail.com. The subject should be evaluation. And when use the paperclip icon to attach your digital files. Now, I have a Mac, and I tried this earlier today before this meeting. And when I click that paperclip and select an image, it embeds it into the body of the email, which we absolutely don't want to do because that makes it more difficult for me to download all of these photos. I can right-click on that photo and say, show as icon, and it changes it to an icon. However, the receiver of that email is still going to get it as an embedded image. What I have to do, and I think someone else said they have a Mac and they don't have this problem, but what I have to do is I have to go to Gmail. Now, I'm using Apple Mail when this happens. So if it happens to you, go to Gmail and it will attach perfectly as an icon, and the receiver will receive it as an icon. And then once you send that email, there's an automated confirmation from the digital director's mail that says they've received something. So make sure you receive that email. If you sent your images and you do not receive that confirmation, please contact me to let me know. And if you have any questions, you can contact me or you can contact Phil or any of the directors, but I would probably start with me. Even if it's a print, I would start with me.
If we have a question now, can we interrupt?
Yeah.
So does the maximum file size need to include any digital frame that is added to the photo?
Say that again.
I'm sorry if you couldn't hear me, I'll move closer to the mic. Does the maximum size or the optimal size that you recommend we submit photos for, does that include the digital frame that one of the evaluators likes?
It does, because the digital frame is also going to be displayed on the screen. So that size has to include everything.
Okay. I doubt I'll ever add one because I personally don't like them, but I was just curious if I ever decided to try it to make sure that okay, so you do include it and that makes sense. So that means you have to do it first.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
You're on mute, Karen.
Michael, what
Okay.
I realized with my process, I use Lightroom predominantly. So I'll get the picture exactly how I want it in Lightroom. Then I take it over to Photoshop, go through Anthony's little procedure to expand the canvas size, put the black frame, most of the time it's a black frame around it, put a stroke. He'll describe what that is, but it's like a little, if you've ever double matted a picture to hang on your wall and, they cut that bevel edge and it makes it look like, there's a little frame inside a frame. That's what the stroke does in Photoshop. So once I've done that, then I save it back to Lightroom and I export from Lightroom and use the 3840 width, 2160 height. So that way I know the picture that I'm sending in is going to fit on that computer screen and it's going to look good when it's displayed. So that's my process. I know other people do it different ways, but I've fallen into that and it seems to work for me.
Okay.
Hope that helps.
Yep.
Okay, so this is for Photoshop.
Oh, that was for Photoshop. I'm sorry.
Yep. Oh, that was for Lightroom.
That was Lightroom. This is okay.
Yeah. I just switched over to Photoshop. Same sizes, 3840 width, 2160 height. I do not have Photoshop on my laptop. The CCR laptop does not have Photoshop. I could not verify any of this, so this is Greek to me. I apologize. But the information you're going to need is over here on the right-hand side. So your image is in the middle, and over on the right-hand side, there's a file setup. It says format, you want to choose JPEG. Image size, you've got a width and a height. There's two ways you can do this here. If 3840 and 2160 doesn't fit your image, you can enter one or the other. You can enter a width of 3840 and it will select the right height. And I think this particular image here in the example, it wound up with, when you enter a 3840, I think it changed the height to 2560, which is too much. It needs to be a maximum of 2160. So what you do is you wipe out the height, you wipe out the width. You put 2160 in the height, and then it will calculate the width. So you can put one value or the other, and it will calculate the other value. So if you put something in and it's too big, try entering the other value. Does that make sense? Hopefully, yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then there's a
that's
canvas
exactly the
size.
way that Terry explained it. Terry Troxel, our webmaster, does his in Photoshop. So we had him write and revise this one. And that's exactly, Pat, you did great for this being Greek. That's exactly how Terry described it. You know, try one. If it overcalculates the number, then wipe it out, try the other one, and double check it, you know, before you hit that save button, and then you should be fine.
Right. And same for the canvas size. Once you've done the image size up here and you know what the numbers are, you can enter the same numbers down here on the canvas size. And then down at the bottom here under the color space, you want to select convert to sRGB and embed color profile. And then once all of that is set and you make sure you double check your sizes, then you just hit export. And then this is the part that's really Greek to me. You select file, save as, and then you put the naming convention, but that naming convention, I don't see that screen here, so I don't know exactly what that looks like. So again, I apologize. I don't know what it looks like, sorry. And then same thing for Lightroom. You're going to send everything in a single email with the evaluation as the subject. Any questions or anything anybody wants to add or clarify? Okay.
That's
So
the
there's
hard
two.
part. You guys are doing well if you don't have any questions at this point.
So what are these?
Now, Pat, if you want to hit stop share, then I
Okay.
can go back to our little guideline.
Okie dokie. All right.
Yeah. And then I will bring that back up again. All righty. And I think you covered all of that when we went to our separate procedures. So let's talk about file naming.
Okay. So this is, I mean, I was going to say this is real important. It's all real important. But the file naming, you want it to be media type underscore title of image underscore your name.jpg. The media type can be D for digital or P for prints. The underscores are needed because we strip off the procedures or scripts, I guess, that Michael created. Use those underscores as delimiters to know whether or not this should be a digital or whether it's a print, and to be able to strip off your name. So it's real important to put these underscores where they belong. There should be an underscore between the media type and the title of the image and your name. You can include spaces or hyphens in your name or in the title of the image, but no underscores anywhere else except those couple of places. The suffix always has to be JPG. So here's an example. We've got D underscore on a clear day with spaces underscore Karen Davis with spaces .jpg. So the D indicates it's a digital. On a clear day, which is the next segment of the file name, is the title of the photo, and then Karen Davis, which is the last segment, is the photographer, and then .jpg. And then for assigned subjects, it's exactly the same, except after the photographer's name, you want to put underscore AS to indicate it's an assigned subject. So this one right here, you can see is exactly the same as the other. It's D for digital underscore the open door, which is the title of the photo, underscore Pat space Hutchinson B, and underscore AS for assigned subject .jpg. There is a note at the bottom that says you must include the AS at the end of your file name or your image will be disqualified and will not be evaluated. But when I was reading this today, and I don't know why it didn't hit me before, if you don't include underscore AS, it can be an assigned subject photo, but it's going to be presented as a general photo and not as the assigned subject, because I'm not going to know. If you don't put, I'm not going to be able to look at the image and go, oh, there's a door. You know, they wanted it to be an assigned subject. If you don't put AS on there, it will not be treated as an assigned subject.
Yeah, good observation. I think we need to reword that red text. I think what we're trying to get across there is that if it is not evaluated in the assigned subject category in that particular month, so doors and windows is one of our assigned subjects. If this doesn't go through the evaluation as an assigned subject for windows and doors, it cannot compete in the windows and doors category for end of year. Does that clarifies it? And that we probably ought to change that wording at the end. Like Pat said, it will be evaluated, but it's going to be a general evaluated image, not the assigned subject. And you wouldn't be able to enter it at end of year.
Yeah, I guess one other question / comment on that, and what you're saying clarifies it for me, but what I was also thinking when she read that was, if you submit an assigned subject photo and a general photo, and you forget the AS after your name on the assigned subject, only one of them can be evaluated as general, right? So one of them is going to be dropped.
That's true.
That can be done a couple, that can be done a couple of ways, depending on when you send that email and send those images to me. If I've got two, I can send you another, I can respond back to you and go, hey, what's going on? You can only submit one in the general category. Mm-hmm. And then you can either correct the file name, resubmit it to me, or if it's at the very last minute, I can do one of two things. I can either pick one just randomly. I'm not going to, use my judgment as to which one I think is better. I'm just going to randomly pick one and submit it, or I throw them both out, which I really don't want to do. So it's real important, if you want it as an assigned subject, to put that AS on there. Because I could really pick, if you had a favorite, I could really pick the wrong one.
All right, I'm going to move on if there are no other questions.
And then this is also saying, again, do not embed the photos, which we've already been through. And then there's a different set of rules for prints. Can you scroll up just a little bit more, Karen? Yeah. Right, so for prints, these are evaluated on a light box according to Photographic Society of America rules. So they have to be mounted, matted, and printed onto whatever can be put into a freestanding light box. They can't be framed. You want to make sure that whatever matting you have is attached well to the image. You don't want any Scotch tape showing, whether it's in the corners or the sides, or you don't want, however you're attaching it to its back, and you don't want that to be visible. Glass prints also are not available, are not allowed. The prints have to be at least 5x7 and no larger than 16x30. That does include the mat. And then there's an evaluation form. So if you click this blue link here, it's going to take you to a document that's got, I think it's like 4 little evaluation forms. You want to fill that out. There's a checkbox on there that says you want this to be as a print. And then it's the title of the image, your name, and the date. So make sure you fill all that out, and it goes into the upper left-hand corner of your print. And that helps once Phil, the print director, gets all of these images, these prints, that information helps him sort it so that those are in the same order as what we're going to display on the big screen. If we've got an in-person evaluator, and I think this was mentioned before also, you want to make sure that the prints are to fill at least 15 minutes before the meeting starts. If there is a virtual evaluator, then you do not bring your prints at all, but you can still submit the digital image for the print. We will still treat it as a print, but we just won't have the physical print itself. And then if you do bring a print, you want to make sure you pick it up after the meeting, because Phil really doesn't want to carry a bunch of prints home and then try to, get in contact with somebody. So just make sure you take it home with you. And then anytime you submit a physical print, you also need to submit the JPEG along with it. The JPEG rules for the print are exactly as the JPEG for digital. File naming is the same. The one difference is going to be that first node of the file name is going to be P underscore instead of D underscore. D is for digital, P is for print. So that's going to be the big difference in the file naming. Everything else is going to be the same. The size, the formatting, the naming, everything else is the same. That's it. Oh, and I guess I should say you also want to make sure you email those digital prints or digital images to the digital director. So that's it.
It sounds so simple
Any
when you say it.
questions?
Very helpful, thank you.
Yeah, we always realize that we've got new folks coming in, and it can be a little overwhelming. I remember back when I was new, I thought, I'm never going to get this straight. And, hopefully we put together some step-by-steps. And what we showed you tonight is sort of a rearranged version of the actual procedures. So, because we wanted to cover them in a little bit more logical order to make more sense for you. But all of this is in those procedures that I emailed out. And as we mentioned, we put them on the website. You can get them there. And if you have any questions, like I said, Pat is our digital director. Philip Snyder is our print director. I've been around for a while, and I'm happy to answer questions for you. Terry Troxel, our webmaster, has been up to his elbows in this for several years. So we have quite a few resources. Your board members are always here to help you with whatever. I noticed also I was going to introduce Jerry. I don't know if he's still on the call, but Jerry's a new board member. Jerry Posino is our new secretary for this year. And he's joined the ranks of the board members. So, all righty. Anything we need to go back over, I can scroll back through this. If anybody has questions, let me go back to the beginning. Try not to make you dizzy. All right. Oops, didn't mean to move that. This is a live document. All right. Well, there you go. We think you should all participate.
I had a question.
Uh-huh.
It's back to the when you submit. I think I've been doing it wrong all along. When you submit for an evaluation, y'all said it should be an icon versus an actual photo in the email.
It should be attached to the email as opposed to embedded inside the email.
So if I click the little attachment looking paperclip thing,
The little,
that's what I need to do?
right,
Okay.
Mhm.
right, yes. When I was talking about, what did I say? I forgot exactly what my right click says. An icon. That's just something I see with my Apple Mail. But when you click that paperclip and select a file and say okay, it's going to insert it. It's going to look like an icon when you use the paperclip, unless you have Apple Mail.
I have the Mac, so I was just testing it, and it looks like it sends them as pictures, even though I worked it as that paperclip thing. So I need to change something. Go to Gmail.
Yes, that's what I have to do. I've been looking around on how to change that, but I've heard somebody. Do you have a Mac, Karen?
No, I don't do Apple.
Okay. Yeah, I would go to Gmail, and when you go to Gmail and you click that paperclip and go through the same process as you would in Apple Mail, it inserts it as an icon, and the receiver of that email will get it also as an icon.
All right. Thank you.
Or
And Jerry, feel free to, if you want to send that to either Pat or myself, and we'll see what it looks like on the receiving end, because I'm dealing with you Apple people sometimes. It looks great as you're sending it out. We've had conversations with a couple of other folks, and they swear up and down that it looked like an attachment, but when it got to me, it was embedded in the middle of the email. And so leading up to
it's
first
going
evaluation,
it's going to be embedded. And the reason I say that, you can send it to me and test it, Jerry, if you want, but I have 6 emails. So I send it from one of my emails to the other email, and they're all Gmails, and it comes through as embedded.
Okay.
I'm sorry. If I find out a way to change that or a way to correct that, I will definitely put it out there for people.
Okay.
okay. We had a thank you from Bolin. He had to leave, but he was appreciative of the Anthony Rumley link. And again, I put it in the chat, but I'll also put it out on the on our Facebook group. If you're not a member of the Facebook group and you do Facebook, go look for Camera Club of Richmond members. And it's a lot of fun stuff going on there. Dan Maurer, our exhibit director, actually owns the group page, and he's constantly putting information out there. It's like, show us your best portraits, show us reflections, and then people are able to look at your pictures and give you some critique, give you a little atta-girls and atta-boys on some nice shots. It's kind of fun. And then a lot of times we'll share important information that we want to get out, kind of quickly. So there you go. Any other questions or comments? I'm going to stop the share so we can see everyone's smiling face. Thank you guys for coming. And thanks, Pat, for doing an awesome job of going through everything. I hit the ground running.
I appreciate your help.